Hey guys, how we doing? Listen, I wanted to do a quick video because I'm getting a lot of questions on dashboards and KPIs and people who are newer to the contact center and what should I be looking at, and what are some of the the most important things that I need from a reporting standpoint, real-time reporting standpoint, to kind of measure what's going on in my contact center. So I've done this before, but I have even some cooler tools now, so I wanted to just kind of go over this slowly. If you were an advanced call center manager, you probably want to just keep it moving. But if this is something that's new to you, I'm going to kind of go into detail on some of the things that I like to look at, some of the things that we are looking at, every single day from a real time, and then even getting into a historical standpoint. All right, let's kind of dig into this. So I just set up a sample dashboard. This is kind of fake data with a bunch of different stuff like kind of all thrown in here. So it's a mismatch of stuff just to kind of give an example, just kind of my test dash right here. So the first thing that you want to do when you're setting things up, and I think one of the most important things is your service level, right? So you need to know the percentage of calls that are being answered in a specific period of time. Right? So most of the time, this is an 80-30. 80% of the calls answered within 30 seconds or less. Doesn't have to be. Sometimes it could be a 50-120. 50% of the calls answer within 2 minutes or less. Whatever your culture, whatever you're kind of looking for, that's where that comes into. Again, for us, normally this is an 80-30. So if this was real stuff, I'd be kind of losing it or wondering what was going on, that we're only at a 53 or 54% service level when we should be at an 80. All right, the next widget that I love to kind of look at and gives me from a real-time standpoint is the percentage of abandoned calls, right? For most of our clients, and as a kind of a standard KPI, that number should probably be 3% or less. Again, there's different ways to kind of think that through, and I know people have opinions on that, but I think overall that's kind of what people are looking for, 3 or 5% or less, depending on kind of what you're doing. So I would say, okay, we're doing okay here. Looks like our staffing's okay, at least for where we are right now in the day. Our average speed of answer, right, is 28 seconds, right? So that's good. So it's taking us on average 28 seconds to answer calls, right? And this fictitious client that we're working for. So again, if our service level is an 80-30, that's pretty good, right? The average is under that 30 seconds, so our service level should be pretty good. Always want to have your calls in queue up, right? That's kind of one of your main metrics, so that's why it's on the top. How many calls are actively in queue, and then just kind of the number of active agents, so I have an idea of where we are during the day. It's funny, once you get really good at this, and I know a lot of you can do this too, is what time it is by the number of agents you have. So like, oh, look, it's noon because we have now 74 agents here. Right? It's funny how that kind of works. All right, so these are like on the top. I kind of have the overall basic. Now, guys, we could get super deep into this, right? Like, let me show you this. There's so many different metrics that you can play with. And again, we're using the Nice and Contact InView product, which is kind of their advanced reporting product that just has a ton of different KPIs. So again, ton of stuff that you can go down the rabbit hole with. I just want to give you the things that I think are most important to be as efficient as you can right from the beginning. And then anything else they're more tweaking KPIs, right? If you see one of these, one of these guys is off, right? Then you can go into a deeper dive into why you think or have the system kind of tell you why. All right, so then, we're kind of getting into the agent efficiency stuff here than the overall program efficiency here. So we're looking at our average handle time, right? So, I can set this up. So for this in this model, our average handle time, we like to be at 6 minutes. Now we're at 1:52. Obviously, this is all fake data, but if this was real life, I'd be panicked here, right? If our average handle time as a goal is supposed to be 6 minutes, we're only at 1:52. There's probably an issue with we're not servicing people, or we're just hanging up, or something crazy is going on. So really you want to be within 10 to 15% of the norm, right? So if you're 10% over, it's probably not terrible. If you're 10% under, it's probably not terrible. But anything that I start to see 20, 30, 40, 50% under goal, 20, 30, 40, 50% over goal, we have an issue. And we need to make sure that we're going to remedy that, and we're going to go listen to reps or find out what's going on the floor. Occupancy, right? A number that so many people wonder about or don't hear about. I'm going to show you the actual definition to make sure that it kind of sticks in with you. So occupancy is a huge number for us, and it should be for you from an efficiency standpoint. It's the percent amount of time an agent was handling a call compared to their total available and handle time, right? So basically, it's the amount of time that a rep was actually talking and working with a customer, right? So any of that kind of anything in after call work, if they're waiting for calls, that's going to be a negative occupancy. Occupancy is how many times they were occupied, right, with an actual customer, right? So we like to have that number at about 70%, and we know that we're pretty efficient. And when we see numbers like, and here, what do we have? We have 63%, right? And I'm also going to say, okay, here, on the East Coast, it's about 10:30. We're just kind of getting to our day. That's probably not a terrible number. But again, if you have a number that is an occupancy of 80, 90%, your reps are getting slammed, right? They're getting overworked, they're getting burned out. If you have a number that is under that 70, getting into the 60s and the 50s, then you're not as efficient as you should be. So occupancy is a kind of get you thinking about if you're staffed appropriately for certain intervals. And so I like to look at occupancy over intervals, right, to make sure that, from a workforce management standpoint, we're good. All right, so that's kind of, I think, if you have a real basic dashboard, right, if you have a basic telephony platform, everyone's going to have this stuff, right? They might not get deeper into it, but you're going to be able to have this stuff. So again, that's what I just want to show you, like stuff that 99% of all platforms are going to have. I think this is really all you need, right, to really be able to manage well what you're doing throughout the day. All right, then obviously we want to look at our agents, right? And we want to know, what everybody's on, what programs they're on, what their current agent, do I have a lot of people in meetings, or do I have too many people in training? Kind of just given the overall gist of kind of what's going on there, right? And then we can also see our long calls, right? So is anybody on a call for a really long period of time? What's going on there? So that kind of gives you need to have an overall current agent state, right? Where you can kind of see what your agents are doing currently and make sure that obviously that they're doing the right thing. Agent counter, I'm not sure if this is good or not, but I kind of like it just to kind of see the day of the flow of the day. I can pretty much tell, who, what time of day is, with this as well, depending on who's on inbound, who's on outbound, what we're doing there. I like to also have an interval. Now I just did this for yesterday because it's only, it's 10:25 in the morning here, so we're not going to have a ton of data. So, the cool thing about even InView, not to plug this, but I can just kind of change really quickly, this week, this month, this day, which is really, really cool. So if I want to know, how many calls we've had, in the last 7 days, I just kind of click that, and calls by interval come up, for the last 7 days. But I like to, really have this for this report for what we're doing here is having it for today and having it real time, right? So I can see, okay, how many calls we've had in, how many abandons, kind of getting an overall feel for what's going on for the day, and how our supervisors be monitoring that. We have a leaderboard, and it's basically, we look at different programs for different clients, and whatever KPI we think is the KPI we're trying to focus on, we just throw one KPI up, and our reps actually see this and monitor this. So like, for example, I used average handle time. Now these guys are on outbound, right? So they're super quick calls because sometimes they don't get a hold of someone. But, like looking into here, these are some inbound guys, right? And we're looking at average handle time, and each client will have their own. So again, if you have let's say for you, it's inbound customer service and it's tech support and it's sales, right? Those could be 3 different dashboards and 3 different leaderboards that have different KPIs that you really want to focus on. And I think that keeps your reps kind of pinpointed into, what they need to do for the day. And then obviously we want to have a rep summary, right? So what are they doing for the day? And we can do this by interval, and this, I did this again by yesterday because it's like 10:30 in the morning, looking at average handle time, looking at, and maybe yesterday, this is a good report, right? So we're seeing, okay, these handle times are red because 6 minutes, we said, right, in our fictitious, client that we're working for, or internal center that we're working for. 6 minutes is where we need to be. Now, granted, these guys are on different clients that have different handle times. But for the sake of this, if we're saying it's 6 minutes, we would look down here, find out who our anomalies are, right? And that's who we start to focus on, because we can see from yesterday where they were, and then looking at today, where they are as well. And again, looking at occupancy, calls per hour, their abandoned percentage. And then the other thing I like to do is have the current contacts up. I can monitor off of this as well, right? I can kind of just, double click in and listen to, different types of calls that are coming in. I think I don't know, maybe it's a cooler thing than an actual efficiency standpoint thing. But I think it's important to kind of see where everybody's doing. And I don't know, maybe it's just interesting for me too, to kind of see where all these calls are coming from. But then kind of the last thing, and again, I have about 5 or 6 reports like this on my official dashboard for all of our clients. But I like to look at, intervals, and I like to look at, where things are trending. Now, I get WFM reports with this, but for me personally, I just like to dig into the numbers myself, right? And be able to kind of see, the last couple days. So this is, I believe, the last 30 days, the amount of calls that we've had and the service level that we've had for the day, right? And I think I'm good enough at this now that I just know, where we have issues, or where numbers should be, where service levels should be. And I hopefully can talk to even the WFM guys. We sometimes have a race on who's saying, hey, where we have an issue with as well. The other thing I wanted to show you that I think is pretty cool is, with this interval report, we can get the chart. We can look at a chart as well. And let me pull up like yesterday. Let's just do this week. So for this kind of, this client that we're working with, and I know this looks crazy and I can do it in a couple different ways, but I'm a pretty visual person and a visual learner, right? So I like to see, okay, I see in our dash, how calls were coming in, but now, I can visually look at as well how our call volume is going for this, whatever client. I can look at, maybe I want to look at calls and abandons, right? And how that's going. Or I want to just see what our, calls relative to service level, right? And where do we need to smooth some things out? So I don't know. I like this platform as well because it gives me the ability to not only just look at this, to not only look at the chart, right, and to kind of see that, but to also get a visual representation of where we are as well. Like, has our handle time moved over the last sorry, get all these guys off. How is our handle time? And again, guys, this is all weird data, but normally we see our handle time is about the same, right? So that's like the 4 or 5 minute mark, whatever client it is. But if we see some of this, we'll see do we have new guys on, right? Are there new guys that are maybe hurting it? Do we need to tweak some preferences for that? So I don't know. I think that this is all you really need, right? Again, have a couple modules that show your efficiency. Have some rep efficiency. Make sure you're keeping an eye on your reps. Now, we're not getting into monitoring and listening to reps right now. This is just kind of taking snapshots of the day and then snapshots of kind of the overall program that you have. And every morning when you're coming in, understanding kind of what's going on, preparing yourself for the day, and then kind of preparing. So, again, I hope that kind of explains some of the KPIs that are important and gives you kind of a real rough idea on how you can manage a shift. Thanks.